In past few video lectures, we have learned about thermal expansion, expansion of solids, expansion of liquids, and their coefficients we have learned. And in this video session, we will be learning about expansion of gases. As we already have learned, gases only, liquids and gases. Liquids and gases have volume or cubical expansion. These have cubical expansion. It is because, as we know, these substances does not have particular length and particular area. They take shape of the container. So if you are dealing with gases, definitely that gas should be taken in a closed container. So when you are taking a gas in closed container, and if you are heating it, depending upon the circumstances, the gas can undergo change in the pressure or change in the volume. It can undergo change in pressure, or it can undergo change in the volume, or even it can undergo change in both. So therefore, when we are dealing with gases, in case of gases, either first thing is that pressure can be changed. So when pressure is changed, obviously volume also undergo change. Therefore, you can write, like when we are dealing with gases, you can measure how much amount of change is observed in the gases by considering pressure or volume. Therefore, we have two coefficients of expansion that depends upon which parameter you are including. For example, if you are considering with pressure, if pressure of the system is undergoing change, then you can write it as gamma P, where coefficient of cubical expansion with respect to pressure. Whereas if it is volume, you will be writing it as gamma V, where gamma V is coefficient of cubical expansion, where volume is undergoing change. So therefore, you can represent change in the volume of the system by either, you can represent change in the system of the gas either by considering volume or either by considering pressure. So therefore, we will be having two coefficients when we deal with gaseous expansion. Now let us first learn volume coefficient of gases. Here we are finding change in the volume. Volume coefficient of gases, that is gamma V. As every gamma, we already have discussed that gamma is equal to change in the volume. Change in volume divided by initial volume into change in the temperature delta theta. Same thing here also. When pressure is maintained constant, and remember volume will be undergoing change when pressure is equal to constant in this case. So when pressure is maintained constant, you can write gamma V is equal to increase in volume by original volume into rise in the temperature. Therefore, gamma V is equal to delta V divided by V naught into delta T, where V naught and Vt are the volumes of gas keeping pressure constant at 0 degrees Celsius and T degrees Celsius. So I can now write delta V is equal to volume at temperature T minus volume at 0 degrees Celsius. Similarly, change in the temperature can be written as final temperature minus 0 degrees Celsius. This is equal to T. I can now write gamma V is equal to Vt minus V naught divided by V naught into delta T. I should replace it with T. And this goes to the other side. V naught gamma V into T is equal to Vt minus V naught This gives you volume at temperature T will be written as V naught plus V naught into gamma V into change in the temperature. Vt is equal to V naught, you can take it common, it is 1 plus gamma V into T, where Vt is volume at temperature T. Vt is equal to volume at temperature T degree Celsius, and V naught is equal to volume at 0 degree Celsius. This is the way you can find out gamma V, where volume coefficient of gas when the pressure of the gas is remained constant. Finding volume coefficient of expansion for gases, we will be using ideal gas equation. Ideal gas equation is PV is equal to nRT. That means pressure into volume is equal to constant, where nRT, T is the temperature, N is number of moles, R is real gas constant. As we know, when pressure is maintained constant, see PV is equal to nRT. If P is equal to constant, when pressure is maintained constant, then you can write volume is directly proportional to temperature T. Therefore, change in the volume is directly proportional to change in temperature delta T. So if pressure is constant, you can write P into delta V, where change in the volume is equal to N is number of moles of the gas, R is real gas constant, and this is delta T, which is change in the temperature. Right? This is equation number 1, and this is equation number 2. Now divide equation 2 by equation 1. This gives you PV is equal to NR into T. NR gets cancelled, P and P gets cancelled. This gives you delta V by V is equal to delta T divided by T. Right? Now bringing this delta T to the other side, you can simply write delta V by V into delta T is equal to 1 by T. And what is delta V by V into delta T? That is gamma V. Therefore, you can write gamma V is equal to 1 by temperature T, or you can write it as 1 by 273 per degree Celsius. That means if you are converting it into Kelvin, this is usually in Kelvin. If you convert it into Celsius, it will be 1 by 273 per degree Celsius. So temperature T will be equal to 273 plus 0. 273 plus 0. This is the temperature T, where gamma V can be estimated. Gamma V is equal to 1 by T. We already discussed for gases, there will be two cubical coefficients. One is gamma V and the other one is gamma P, where gamma V is volume coefficient of the gas, gamma P is pressure coefficient of the gas. We have already discussed gamma V is equal to delta V by V naught into delta T, or you can write it as gamma V is equal to 1 by capital T. This is in Kelvin. This is what we have discussed previously in past 2 slides. Now let us measure pressure coefficient gamma P. As pressure coefficient is that delta P is equal to change in the pressure or increase in the pressure, it is delta P divided by initial pressure into rise in the temperature delta theta, or you can write it as delta T. That's not at all big issue. So if P naught and PT are pressure at 0 degree Celsius and T degree Celsius, I can write delta P is equal to final pressure minus initial pressure, and delta theta can be written as T degree Celsius minus 0 degree Celsius. Substituting these values here, gamma P is equal to PT minus P naught divided by P naught into T. This gives you pressure at a temperature T is equal to P naught into 1 plus gamma P into T. This is the way you can find out pressure coefficient of gas gamma P by calculating pressure at 0 degrees Celsius and also at temperature T. And we already have discussed that under constant, like when you are measuring volume constant or when you are measuring pressure constant, you will be having two gas coefficients. When P is equal to constant, you will be calculating gamma V. When V is equal to constant, we will be calculating gamma P. Remember this, right? And this graph is already discussed in previous video lectures. If you extrapolate, the volume of all the gases will be ceasing at minus 273 degrees Celsius. This can be written as 0 Kelvin. So finding gamma P, it is similar to that of what we have learned in gamma V. Gamma P is equal to 1 by 273 per degree Celsius. Now let us consider if P1 and P2 are the pressures of a given mass of gas at a temperature T1 and T2 respectively. Then, so pressure is P1 at a temperature T1. Pressure is P2 at temperature T2. Therefore, individually you can write down the equations P1 and P2. Taking ratio of these two, you can write P2 by P1 is equal to 1 plus gamma P by T2 divided by 1 plus gamma P to T1. Just you cross multiply this. If you cross multiply this, you will be writing it as P2 1 plus gamma P into T1 is equal to P1 into 1 plus gamma P into T2. This is P2 plus P2 gamma P T1 is equal to P1 plus P1 gamma P T2. This gives you P2 minus P1 is equal to P1 gamma P T2 minus P2 gamma P T1. Now you can take gamma P common from this. If I take gamma P common, it is P1 T2 minus P2 T1. From this you can write gamma P is equal to P2 minus P1 divided by P1 T2 minus P2 T1. This is how you can find out gamma V or gamma P, which is P2 minus P1 divided by P1 T2 minus P2 T1. Similarly, you can write down gamma V is equal to V2 minus V1 divided by V1 T2 minus V2 T1, where V1, V2 are the volumes at T degrees Celsius. V1 is volume at T1 degrees Celsius and V2 is volume at T2 degrees Celsius. Substituting those temperatures and volumes in this, you will be getting gamma V, where gamma V is the volume coefficient of the gas. Gamma P is the pressure coefficient of the gas. Likewise, as this graph which has been already explained, at 0 Kelvin, at 0 degrees Celsius, there is some pressure P0. And if you decrease the temperature to minus 273 degrees, that means if you extrapolate that in backward direction, it is meeting at 0 Kelvin, which is the origin for formation of Kelvin scale. This is one of the important application of expansion of the solids. This is change in time period of a simple pendulum. Simple pendulum is a mass attached with a string. And this simple pendulum has mass m, and this is length of the string. Length of the string is from the point of suspension to the point where center of mass of the bob lies. So this length from here to here, it is called length of the pendulum. This is length of the pendulum. It is length of the pendulum. And when you take this simple pendulum mass to height, and if you leave it, it comes back to its mean position and then it goes back again to the new position, resulting in oscillations of the simple pendulum. And the time period of the oscillations is given by T is equal to 2 pi under root L divided by G, which you will be learning in simple harmonic motion. So in oscillations chapter, you will be separately deriving this equation also. T is equal to 2 pi under root L by G. It means time period of the simple pendulum. Time period of the simple pendulum is directly proportional to under root length, and time period is directly proportional to or inversely proportional to acceleration due to gravity. However, when you are changing the temperature, this G is constant. G is equal to 10 meter per second square. This is always remained same. Acceleration due to gravity does not change. That you will be learning in class 9th itself. G is 10 meter per second square. I am treating this as fixed value. And the time period now is only dependent upon length of the pendulum. As length of the pendulum changes, time period change. So it is that what is the parameter undergoing change when you are increasing the temperature? As we know, as temperature increases, length of the pendulum increases. Is it not? As temperature of the system increases, that means when you are providing heat energy, what would happen? Length of the pendulum increases. As length of the pendulum increases, time period increases. Therefore, as temperature increases, time period of the pendulum increases. Because, see, let me take, this is a simple pendulum. Here we have a simple pendulum, and this simple pendulum has some length L naught, and this is at a temperature T naught. Now, as you are increasing the temperature, what would happen? Definitely, when you are increasing the temperature, length of the pendulum would slightly increase. Length of the pendulum would be increased. As length of the pendulum increases, its time period also increases. And this is at a temperature T1, and its length will be L1. Clearly, L1 is equal to L0 into 1 plus alpha into delta theta, where delta theta is equal to T2 minus T1, where T1 and T2 are the temperatures. Remember, capital T represents time period, small t represents its temperature. So therefore, L1 is length of the pendulum. As length of the pendulum is changed, what would happen? Here you will be getting new time period, and this is initial time period. So how do you write new time period? New time period at T1 is equal to 2 pi under root L1 divided by G, which is equal to 2 pi under root. L1 can be written as L0 into 1 plus alpha delta theta divided by acceleration due to gravity. This gives you T1 is equal to 2 pi under root L0 divided by G into under root 1 plus alpha into delta theta. So there should not be any question in this, because L0 by G I am writing it separately. 1 plus alpha delta theta I am writing it separately. But what is this total? This total is T0. Therefore, T1 is equal to T0 into under root 1 plus alpha into delta theta. This is the final time period of the, this is the final time period which where as temperature increases, time period of the pendulum also increases by a factor of 1 plus alpha into delta theta. And this formula you need to remember. You can even still resolve this as T1 is equal to T0 into 1 plus alpha delta theta whole power 1 by 2. And this whole power 1 by 2, 1 plus alpha delta theta whole power 1 by 2, you can just expand this expansion series, which gives you T1 into 1 plus alpha 1 by 2 into alpha into delta theta plus so on. It is an expansion series. This you will learn in mathematics chapter, where T naught into 1 plus alpha delta theta plus 1 by 4 into alpha square into delta theta whole square, like that. This is higher order terms. Higher order terms can be neglected because alpha value is very, very small. So this, after neglecting higher order terms, you can write T1 is equal to T naught plus 1 by 2 alpha T naught into delta theta. Bring this T naught to the other side. You can just write it as T1 minus T naught divided by, bring this T naught onto the other side, which gives you alpha delta theta divided by 2. This is very, very important equation, which you can find out percentage change in the time period. So percentage change in the time period is equal to 1 by 2 alpha into delta theta. So simply you can write it as delta T divided by T is equal to half alpha into delta theta. This is percentage change in the time period of the simple pendulum. Just you multiply this with 100. Percentage change of time period with change in temperature. So this is how, with respect to temperature, the simple pendulum length increases, therefore the time period also increases. As time period increases, that means it takes more time for one oscillation. So as it is taking more time for one oscillation, therefore we say that day gains an extra time when temperature of the substance increases, whereas there is loss of the time during temperature decreases. So very, very important concept. Change in time period of the simple pendulum with respect to temperature. Yeah. Let us learn one practical application based on increase in temperature results change in the time period of the pendulum. See, here is a pendulum clock, and this pendulum will be oscillated. As the pendulum is oscillated, initially we will be setting this simple pendulum in such a way time period is equal to 1 second. We will be considering time period of this simple pendulum as 1 second. So for every second here, if this is oscillated for 60 times, 1 minute is completed. So instead of seconds hand in the clock, you will be using a simple pendulum. Based on motion of the simple pendulum, seconds clock is neglected, and directly there will be 1 minute moved by the minute hand. Now this is at room temperature. This is at room temperature, right? Now what happens as temperature increases? As temperature increases, that is T temperature is greater than room temperature. So as temperature increases, length of the pendulum increases. Length of the pendulum increases, time period also increases. Time period increases, therefore the new time period T dash is equal to 1.5 second, for example. I am considering that 1.5 second is the new time period. Therefore, actually this pendulum oscillations will show 24 hours per 1 day. For 1 day. So that means if it is oscillated for one time, 1 second is being observed here. But now what is happening in this case? As length of the pendulum is increased, time period is increasing. Time period is 1.5 second. So therefore, for every 1.5 second, the minute hand moves by 1 minute. Okay. So in this case, for every 60 into 1.5 second, 1 minute is counted on clock. So for every 60 into 1.5 second, that means for every 60 oscillations, the new time period is 1.5 second, but no one knows. Just we will be going on counting the oscillations. For 60 oscillations, 1 minute will be moved on the minute hand. But what is the actual time taken here? This is 6 into 15, 6 5s 30, 6 1s 3 plus 90 seconds. That means now for 1 minute, 90 seconds, that is the actual time before expansion. But after expansion, in order to take 1 minute, that means motion of 1 minute hand in the clock, will be taking 90 seconds now. As a result, instead of 24 hours, how many hours it will be showing? It will be showing only 23 hours or 22 hours, which is less than 24 hours. Right? Therefore, here what is happening if the time period is increased? If time period increases, day loss time. So 1 day will be completed only for 23 hours. Instead of 24 hours, based on this simple pendulum oscillations, it will be showing only 22 or 23 hours. So for that total time, 24 hours in the actual clock will be completed. So therefore, remember, if time period increases, day losses time. Therefore, in summer, losses times. In winter, day gain time. In winter, why does it gain time? As we know, in winter season, pendulum clock, the length of the pendulum will be decreased because in winter season temperature is less. As temperature become less, length of the clock decreases. Sorry, length of the pendulum decreases. If length of the pendulum decreases, time period decreases. Instead of 60 seconds, it will be oscillated. It will be like only for 40 seconds, it will be making 60 oscillations. So for every 40 second, in 1 minute will be moved in the minutes hand for every 40 seconds. So as a result, instead of showing 24 hours, the day will be increased to 26 hours. So therefore we say in winter, day gain time, and in summer, days gain, losses time. This is very, very important, understanding relations between time period of the oscillations with respect to days time. What is mean by thermal stress? Let us learn this. See, we have a rod. This is a rod. And this rod is in contact with cold body. As the rod is in contact with cold body, what would happen? It will undergo contraction. In this case, it undergo contraction. It undergo contraction. And there is no restriction for the contraction of the rod. Rod can freely undergo contraction in this first case. And in the second case, the same rod, it is in connection with the hot body. So as it is connected with hot reservoir, this will undergo expansion. And the rod, both ends of the rod are free to expand. It can expand. Rod can undergo expansion freely. So in this case, as rod is able to increase or decrease, its length. There is no stress or strain. There is no stress or strain on the rod. Simply, easily it can undergo contraction and easily it can undergo expansion. But whereas coming to the rod, which is fixed between two walls, the rod is fixed between the walls. So this is a wall and this is a wall, and rod is fixed in between the walls. As the rod is fixed in between the wall and you are keeping that rod in contact with cold reservoir. This is cold reservoir. What would happen now? It should actually undergo contraction, but as the rod is fixed with the walls, rod could not undergo contraction because wall is tightly fixing this rod. Therefore, free contraction is not possible here. Free contraction is not possible in this case because rod is fixed with the walls. Likewise, in the same way, when you are placing this rod in contact with the hot reservoir, what would happen? This rod will undergo expansion. It should expand. So when the rod is about to expand, it will be pushing the walls in opposite direction. Is it not? Rod push the walls in opposite, resulting in stress in the rod. But when the rod is about to expand, what is this wall doing? Wall is not allowing rod to expand freely. Rod pushes the wall, wall also pushes the rod. As a result, the rod would undergo some thermal stress. That is what? When the rod is unable to expand or contract freely. When there is no free expansion or contraction, rod undergo thermal stress. Rod undergo thermal stress. And this thermal stress is F by A, which is equal to F by A is equal to Y alpha delta theta, and thermal force F is equal to YA alpha delta theta. These are the equations which you should remember, and where this Y is called Young modulus. Alpha is coefficient, thermal coefficient, A is area of cross section, delta theta is change in the temperature, alpha is thermal coefficient. And about Young's modulus, you will be learning in mechanical properties of solid. Young's modulus Y is equal to force by area into length divided by change in the length. This is equation for Young's modulus. This you will be learning in properties of solids. In properties of solids chapter, you will be deriving this Y is equal to F by A into L by delta L. That Young's modulus is carried forward here. So therefore, F by A is called thermal stress and F is called thermal force. Thermal force is Ya alpha delta theta and thermal stress is equal to Ya delta theta. So these are the equations. You need to keep it in your mind when you are expressing thermal stress. And remember, When the rod is free to expand or contract, it does not undergo any thermal stress. Thermal stress in the rod will be 0. Whereas if the rod is unable to be expanded, wall is avoiding expansion or contraction when it is fixed between the two walls. In such cases, rod would undergo thermal stress, and that thermal stress is equal to Y alpha delta theta. Now let us solve one problem based on thermal expansion, and this is collected from NCERT textbook. A blacksmith fixes iron ring on the rim of the wooden wheel of a bullock cart. The diameter of the rim and the iron ring are, diameter of the rim is equal to 5.243 meter, and diameter of iron rim, iron rod, iron ring, it is 5.231 meter respectively, and this is at 27 degrees Celsius. To what temperature should the ring be heated so as to fit the rim for the wheel? In order to fit the rim, to what temperature you need to increase it? That's what your question is. See, now let me consider this is a rim. We are now taking a rim. This is a rim. Sorry, not rim, it is ring. This is ring. This is a ring. And you have a rim like this. There will be a rim, and that rim will be this way. For bicycle, you will have a rim. This is rim. So this is a rim which is made up of steel for bicycle, and upon this we will be fixing a tire. Tire will be fixed upon this rim and tire. But now in case of bullock carts, this rim is made up of wood. For bullock carts, usually this rim is made up of wood, and this ring is made up of iron. Okay, and it is given diameter of this iron ring as 5.231 meter. Usually, diameter of iron ring should be less than diameter of the rim. Clearly, 5.231 is less than 5.243. Why it is so? It is because, like for example, if diameter you are taking it as 5.4 for both, diameter of the rim is equal to diameter of the ring. If both values are equal, what would happen? You can easily fix the wheel and as well as rim. But during summer season, what would happen to this ring? Ring would undergo expansion. It would undergo expansion because it is made up of iron. As it undergo expansion, what happens to its diameter? Its diameter becomes 5.5. As its diameter is increased to 5.5, this iron ring could not be fixed on the rim. Iron rim and the ring both defixed. It get defixed in summer season. This is in summer. So in order to avoid this, in order to avoid such type of expansion of the rod in summer season, what we do is we will be taking the iron ring whose diameter is less than that of the diameter of the ring. Now what would happen? This diameter of the rim is greater than that of diameter of the ring. So what we will do? We will first increase the diameter of the iron ring by heating. We increase diameter of ring by heating. So we will be heating it until its diameter increases to 5.243 meter. So therefore, you can write diameter after increasing the temperature is equal to initial diameter into 1 plus alpha into delta theta. Now, this is final diameter. How much should be final diameter? Final diameter should be definitely equal to 5.243 in order to fix it on the rim. Initial diameter is 5.231 plus 5.231 into alpha into delta theta, where delta theta is change in the temperature. Now this gives you 5.243 minus 5.231 divided by 5.231 into alpha is equal to delta theta, where delta theta is T minus 27 degrees Celsius. From here you can find out the temperature. So just by taking this alpha value of iron, nearly approximately it will be of order 10 power minus 5. You can substitute that here. So alpha for iron, it is approximately equal to 10 power minus 5 per degree Celsius. This you can substitute here and you can find out the final temperature. If you are heating this iron ring to that temperature, it increases its diameter. Now you can fix it on the rim and you cool down. When you cool down, iron ring fixes the rim hardly and tightly. Even in summer season, the temperature may be raised up to some value, but it may not be increasing its size, which is greater than that of 5.243. So that's the reason why in summer season also ring can be fixed as it is on the rim to avoid defixing. In summer season, we will be taking iron ring diameter slightly less than that of the wooden rim. This is for bullock carts.